Yo, good afternoon, everyone. So, yes, we have 9 participants, so we can start. Today, we have a session of body, mind, intellect. Last time, we had a group discussion. So, we'll continue from the last session where we left. So, I request Anurag ji to take it over and we'll start the session with a prayer.
Thank you, Prashant ji, and namaste. Good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Uh, Once again, thank you for joining this session. Today, we are in the third session of Body, Mind, Intellect. Uh, and let us start uh, with the prayer this session. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahana Bhunaktu सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्ति. In the presence of the Divine Masters and through their blessings, let us step into this session. So, last session, we discussed about the viruses, the mental impurities, which are more deadlier than the viruses of the external world. And these are very unknown. Sometimes, most of the times, we don't know about these viruses and they keep performing their operation in the body. Okay, so what are these? Desire, anger, greed, attachment, fear, arrogance, jealousy, like these vikaras. These are the impurities. Calm. Desire means calm. Krodh, lobh, moh, dambh, bhay. All these are mental impurities. We also discussed that the vaccine for these viruses also exists. Knowledge is the only vaccine. What kind of knowledge? Knowledge of the truth, knowledge of the transcendental, which is the highest knowledge, the knowledge which completes us, completely purifies us. That is the knowledge which is the vaccine. Okay. And then there are various ways to acquire these knowledges depending upon your inner nature, your interest. You can pick up one of these ways which have been given by the sages. Bhakti yoga, that is path of devotion. Jnana yoga, that is path of knowledge. And path of action, that is karma yoga. Among these three paths, path of knowledge is the most arduous path. Jnana yoga is the most arduous path to take. Not many people can tread on this path directly, because here we are directly talking about the Brahm, something which is cannot be seen, something which is beyond everything. So, Nirakara, Nirgun, Brahma, what we say at that last state. It is very difficult for our minds, which have grown in a conditional world, to comprehend something which is beyond that. Okay. So very rarest of the rare people are able to walk on this. Most people take either the path of action or the path of devotion, because that's where you have something where you can put your thoughts on, and then you go to the final step. Eventually, every path is taking to that last stage. But in path of devotion, you have your faith somewhere, like in some Lord, in some deity, or in some guru. So you focus all your thought, bring all your awareness on that one particular subject or an object, and then go to that objectless or the subjectless dimension. So it is like two-step process, which is kind of easier to take. If you look at all the past enlightened souls, you will figure out that very rare of them have taken the path of knowledge directly. They have either started with the path of devotion or the path of action. Eventually, they came on to the path of knowledge. And then these three rivers will, the confluence will eventually reach the final goal. We started talking about the stages of the mind management. Here we are discussing about the experiences the student or the seeker goes through. And these experiences have been given in the scriptures by various sages. So we picked up Yoga Vashishta, where these seven stages have been defined. Uh, Acharya Shankaracharya has also given his experiences in the form of Sadhan Chatushta. We will briefly discuss that also if time permits. So that is how we will go through. So first stage, the very important stage is the desire, the virtuous desire. And we spent quite a good amount of time in understanding the desire in the previous session. How the desire uh, causes, or how the desire is the root of emotions, the emotions which come out, the negative emotions, whether a desire is getting fulfilled or not fulfilled. Both ways, it is taking us into a state of suffering and pain, where our personality is disintegrating. So, desire leads to pain and suffering, but we don't understand. We always are have grown up thinking that objects or subject which we are pursuing in the form of desire will give us the peace or the happiness. In search of that, we try to acquire that. We do a lot of effort to acquire that. We develop that desire, and then eventually we find that, you know, maybe there will be a temporary happiness or temporary joy in the beginning, but eventually everything leads to the pain and suffering. Anything you take, any example you take, desires will lead us to that suffering. Okay, so suffering leads to the stress. So stress is an ocean of the stress where the waves of pain and pleasures keep coming and striking us. Okay, and this stress pushes the person into vishad. That is called the state of vishad or suffering or dukha. Okay, and from there, vishad bonds comes out the desire. When you are pushed to the wall, you will bring all your energy into play, because when you are pushed to the wall, you have either two ways to do, two things you can do. Either you can give up, you can surrender and you give up, like many people do today. They just give up, and or you can get up, you can awaken. Okay, this awakening is a marks a inner revolution inside the person. That is the birth of the virtuous desire, shubhecha. Okay, you must have heard this Kabir's famous line, right? दुख में सुमिरन सब करे, सुख में करे न कोई, जो सुख में सुमिरन करे तो दुख काहे का होए. We remember God, we remember divine only when we are in the state of vishad, we are in the state of suffering. Then we realize, no, I am not able to do, because till that point we are thinking I am doing it, I can do it, I can do that. Lots of these things come. Okay, but eventually what nature also does, nature also gives the steering into our hand. Nature says, okay, you think you can do it, so take up the steering and drive your life. Try controlling everything in your life. And when the steering comes in the hand, we start feeling the all the jerks and trials and tribulations the life is throwing onto us. And that's when the realization happens. Okay, no, 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 I was wrong. I can't do anything. This nature is meticulously running this entire universe. I have no power that, I can control everything in this universe. So that perception breaks at this point. The personality goes through a very, very revolutionary changes when the virtuous desire or the shubhecha is born inside. Okay, shubhecha means virtuous desire is desire for the liberation, desire to come out of this cycle of stress, pains, and pleasure. Because now the realization is happening that the world around is not permanent. It cannot give me that permanent joy. The contemplation starts. The contemplator inside you is awakened when the virtuous desire is born. So a lot of changes in the behavior starts to take place when this desire is born. All that you were liking, you were enjoying previously, your likes and dislikes will start to change. Places where you like to visit, you won't feel like going there. Food you like to eat, you won't like eating that food again and again, because now something is happening inside that virtuous desire, which is telling you, no, this is not going to give you that pleasure. Some higher desire or the higher thing is getting born inside. Like when we are child, we are running behind the toys and the chocolates and the ice creams. Our desires are confined to these things, and as we grow, our quality of desire will be changing. Similarly here, the gross desire will now start becoming a subtle desire, more subtle desire. It will go towards the subtlety now, starts going towards that. So all these things will happen. Like simple thing you say, if in a youth, a young person, suppose the first time he experiences love for somebody, a person sees a girl, and the love starts to happen inside. What happens? Now that person starts enjoying everything what he was enjoying before. Now he thinks that enjoyment lies only in that girl. I just want that girl. The entire world, his entire relationships, his family, everything, nothing he will start, spending time. He will confine himself to the isolation, always thinking about that girl, dreaming about that girl. Rest of the world becomes of no use. The same kind of feeling happens when this desire for the God, the love for the God, first experience that happens inside. Okay. So this is an internal, everything is happening internal. Okay. And it is coming in the behavior. So that's the virtuous desire. Now the second stage is the art of thinking, vicharana. We spoke about the desires. If we are talking, we are talking about body, mind, and intellect. So desire is the mind, the central thing which we were talking. Now after desire comes the thinking, art of thinking, vicharana. So art of thinking has to be developed. Thinking is natural, but art of thinking is not natural. It has to be developed. It is called thought management. Generally, what happens? Thoughts are governing us. The thoughts are our masters of our life. They are governing our life. But that is not the art of thinking. Art of thinking means you are, it is which thought bonds in your mind, which thought you will entertain, you will give energy, which thought will convert into desire is in your hands. It's into your control. It is like a farmer. Okay. Thoughts are like the growth, the crops. Now, thoughts are growing in the mind or in the intellect. Okay. So, intellect is like a field. Now, if you leave the farm with without attention, what will happen? Earth will continue to produce something or the other will continue to grow, but it will be useless. Okay. Useless things will grow. The grass will grow, the wild shrubs and herbs will grow. Okay. Then Wild animals will come in, insects will come in, reptiles will come and make their home inside that. So something will grow because it is the nature of the earth to produce something if it is left unattended. Similarly, if we leave our mind unattended, our intellect unattended, it will continue to produce something, but it will be junk, useless. Okay. But a farmer, what he does, farmer says, I want to grow what I want here. I don't want anything else to be grown. Then he starts doing the farm management, earth management. Okay. He brings the right seeds, he does the right watering at the right time. All those process methods he takes place. He is monitoring the field all the time. Okay. And then the what he wants, he is able to grow. Similarly, when we control the thoughts, the quality of thoughts which will grow in our intellect is called thought management. This is called art of thinking or the vicharana. At this point, when the vicharana is there, the intellect intellect has started to develop now, because now we are getting the clarity. We are getting the clarity that the world outside is dead, it is false, it is unreal. All my pursuits for the pleasures or the joy or the happiness are futile. For past so many births I have been trying to do that, I am repeating my mistakes. All that realization is happening, all that clarity is coming at that point. So when the right vicharana is coming in, the person starts changing his lifestyle. Person wants to change. Okay. And then the search for good literature, search for the guru, search for these practices. Okay, I should do dhyana or pranayama. Person starts looking, searching into all these things. So his search for fun and entertainment from other objects has now changed to the something else. And he is now running behind it. He is searching for that. So that is called satsanga. Person is looking for the virtuous people, company of the righteous people, righteous literature. That is called the satsang. All that starts to, you will see the change in that personality will take place. And this is called the vicharana, art of thinking. So we are talking about art of thinking here. So let us see this video, which will give us some more clarity about this. So the clarity of the goal will start to emerge. What do I want in my life? Thinking will happen. What do I want? We want so many things. Okay. The moment we are born, we are child, we want some things, few things. And as we grow up, our wants and desires will still be there. But now all that wants were baseless. There was no thought behind that. Now we are really thinking, what do I really want in my life? As the contemplator awakes, the goal starts to emerge, the goal of the life. Okay. So let us watch this video. It's a 15-minute video, but it can give a lot of perspective into the, it is a story of most of us. Okay. So I'll play this.
August 1975. I was born. A simple boy in an average Indian family. क्लीशेज तो बहुत थे. माँ मुझसे बहुत प्यार करती थी. बाप मुझ में खुद को ढूंढता था. बहुत प्यार से मेरे माँ बाप ने मुझे बड़ा किया. बड़ा हुआ, लेकिन प्यार कम नहीं हुआ. लेकिन लाइफ भर मैंने एक ही लाइन सुनी,
बेटा अच्छे से पढ़ाई करना, हाँ?
और मैंने की। क्लास के टॉप 10 में मैं हर साल आया। मम्मी लड्डू खिलाती, डैड गेम आर्केड लेके जाते। कॉलेज जाने लगा, उम्र बदल गई, सोच बदल गई, लेकिन साली लाइन नहीं बदली।
बेटा अच्छे से पढ़ाई करना, हाँ?
40,000 की नौकरी पकड़ ली, अपनी कॉलेज वाली गर्लफ्रेंड से शादी कर ली, और 2 साल में मेरी अपनी बेटी। Life continued to go on exactly in the way society intended. But I never stopped to ask myself one simple question. Is this what I want? दुनिया को खुश करने के चक्कर में मैं अपने आप को भूल गया, जीना भूल गया, मुस्कुराना भूल गया, और फिर एक दिन जाने का टाइम आ गया। In that same fucking hospital I was born in. फैमिली इकट्ठी हो गई और सब रोने लग गए। My daughter was crying the most that day. I never saw her plead the way she did with that doctor, just to save my life. If I have to be really honest, these emotions didn't really matter to me in that moment. They say your life flashes before you just when you're about to die. I only had one question running through my mind just as my heart started to give out. A question that plagued my mind ever since I was a little boy. What was the point of life? Why do I exist? A question no one could possibly answer. I saw the world around me living the exact same life I did for 62 years, but not once did I see anyone asking that question. Why would they? We've all become slaves to society's version of life. As the countdown towards that flat line on the heart monitor began, I just hoped for an answer. And just when I thought it was all over, I woke up.
Do I know you?
Nobody does.
Who are you?
This is my favorite part. Sharul Desai, I'm God. Now, before you say that's impossible, or I'm crazy, or I'm a con man trying to rob you, look down. Don't worry.
Is he going to be all right? What did the doctors say? You have to talk to the doctors. Do something. Please. Please do something. Please.
You're taking a last breath in a hospital room in Baikla as we speak. Relax. I mean no harm. By the way, the shit you guys have created is amazingly delicious, I must say. May not be too good for your livers, but I'm God, so I can do anything.
Honestly, I never expected you to be like this.
Be like what?
Be like, you know, this.
Oh, wait. Let me guess. You expected me to walk out from some white, bright light looking something like this? Although, yeah, I really love the hairdo, but this snake around my neck is kind of honestly very terrifying. Although I created it, but it's kind of terrifying. Or did you expect me to look like this? And yes, this wardrobe on a nice breezy day is amazingly chilling, especially in a few places. But I'm not really a fan of the long hair. It goes in my mouth. But I love the abs though. Or did you expect me to look like this?
Hello?
According to some people, I don't have a face. So yeah. But talking to a voice might make you feel like a little bit of a crazy person, so here I am. I'm something the human race will never be able to perceive.
Is this all real? Or is it just happening inside my head?
Of course it's happening inside your head. That doesn't mean it isn't real.
Why am I here?
It's a routine I created millions of years ago. I saw a lot of people lost. Kind of like you. While they took their last breath. So I came up with an idea to spend 5 minutes with every person just before their heart gave out. I'm kinda theatrical that way. You can ask me for anything you want, my son. You've got 5 minutes.
I don't want anything. I have a question though.
Go on.
I lived my life exactly the way society wanted me to live it. I worked hard. But in the end, I never thought that something so beautiful called life could be so mechanical. So my question to you is, why do we exist? What was the point of life? Why are you smiling?
Nothing. बहुत लोग मुझे अलादीन का जीनी समझते हैं. भगवान मुझे ये दे दो, मुझे वो दे दो, मुझे इस स्कूल में डाल दो, मुझे इस लड़की से शादी करा दो. Santa Claus बना के रख दिया इधर. I'm just glad someone's finally asking the right question. So to answer your question, there isn't any particular reason for why you exist. Minus the drunken night your parents had.
Really?
Sorry. But the point of your existence has always been very relative, my son. I haven't given it a clear definition because I always wanted to leave it up to you, the human race, to figure it out. I gave you the choice to do whatever you wanted to do with it.
Actually, sir, that's not what I meant. Perhaps I didn't frame my question properly. But my question is, why did you create us? Why did you create all this? The universe, the planets, the stars, human life. What was the point of it all? I looked above at the stars through my teens, and while most people may find peace, I only ask myself, why? There has to be a reason, right?
No one's really asked me that question before. Everything you see around you has a purpose. Even I have one. To create, to expand. And I can safely say I've done a pretty good job till now, haven't I? So as I fulfilled my purpose, I thought maybe I need to take what I created a little forward. So I gave it to you, the human race. But I don't want to bound you all by any laws. So I gave you all free will, the ability to do anything with this planet. That's why I did what I did. But I must ask, are you guys happy with what you've done?
No.
Why would you be? You managed to ruin the greatest gift I could ever give you all. That's free will. Perhaps it's my fault. I should have known Well couldn't handle it.
Why? Why would you say that?
Look back at the world you're about to leave, my son. Just look at it. Is this what you wanted for your home? Today I look back at the world I've created and my heart aches. My heart aches when I see such immoralities, such cruelty. Such heartlessness. You'll even manage to divide me. And then y'all look above questioning me about why I'm not bringing peace to this world? Really? You question me? It hurts. I cry every time I see it. But I'm not so pessimistic, you know. There are some shades of you people that give me hope. And someday, I believe that you people will understand who I truly am.
Why don't you just come down and make it all better? Exist between us and make this world a great place again.
I already exist between all of you. You've seen me, you've studied me, I even have a name. I'm humanity. You don't need me. You don't need a god. Or you don't need a higher spirit telling you what you must be doing. Because you have all the answers within you. Within here. Because you are your own God. Yes, you will be oppressed. The demons of society will hold you back. But that human within you, he'll find a way. It always does. I just hope everyone realizes their humanity before it's too late.
Will we get another chance?
Your 5 minutes is over, my son.
Hey, Mr. God!
Dad? Dad?
Do you think we'll make it?
Dad?
Well, that, my son, has always been up to you.
So, Vicharana, art of thinking. Think what you want. So the clarity is starts to emerge at this stage. Intellect, that is the free will that was mentioned in that video, free will, ability to do what you want to do. That's where the law of karma comes into the place. Okay. So that starts to happen in this second stage. Very important stage, because now you are very clear about the goal. You are clear what you want to do, but you have still not experienced the other side. You have not experienced the transcendental. The awareness is still in the external world here. but the futility of the external world is now happening. So thinking, let's talk. I think that is another common topic. What is positive thinking and what is negative thinking? Okay, that continuously we keep, and we say that no, be positive means do this, be negative means do that. From the spiritual angle, let us start to understand this from a different perspective. So consider this world as a number line, or your existence, yourself as a number line. This world is there, timeline is there. Number line has negative side, which is going up to infinity, -1, -2, -3, all the way to the infinity. And then it has positive numbers, +1, +2, exactly the opposite. This world is made up of opposites, or the duality, right? It is also going to the infinity. Okay. Now, on the negative side, we have this world, the external world, which we are calling as a material world, which according to our knowledge, when we are born and when we grow up, is the reality. And we grow thinking this is reality. Okay. And then our activities of the life are all towards acquiring these objects, accumulating. Acquisition and accumulation becomes the mission of the life. And then we start uh, evaluating or assessing the success of the life depending upon how much we have acquired and how much we have accumulated in this world, in this part of the things. Okay. So what is happening here is, when our thoughts, our desires, and our actions, all three are directed towards the external world, that is called as, in spiritual terms, as a negative mind. Okay. Negative mind. Because we are going there, we are looking, we are telling unreal as real. Okay. Jagat Satya. And then nothing exists at that point for us. We are not ready to believe because we are not able to comprehend. This Jagat is Satya. And death will, after the death, everything will finish. That is the kind of thinking we have. So that is a negative mind or an impure mind. And on the other side, you have the reality. On the positive side, there is a inner world, or the divinity, or that nature, inner basic intrinsic nature, which is there. Okay, the self. Now look at this state where we have our thoughts towards the divinity, our desires are towards the divinity. That is that virtuous desire we spoke about. What is virtuous desire? Asato ma sat gamaya, tamso ma jyotirgamaya, mrityor ma amritam gamaya. This is the virtuous desire. Oh God, take me to that infinite, internal. Take me to the real from the unreal. Okay, that clarity of unreal and real has now started to happen. So this is the positive thing. And your actions are happening in the external world. Of course, actions have to take place, but they are happening in the external world. These are the selfless actions. These are not selfish actions. When your thought and desire are towards that infinite, the actions which are getting performed are the positive actions. So this is the how we can see that positive thinking and the negative thinking, or the positive mind or the negative mind, the pure mind, sattvic mind. That is how you can decide. Now let's come to the third stage. Another very important. We have discussed desire as one of the impurities, which is calm. Calm again is a root of krodha. We saw in the earlier slide how the krodha, moh, lobh, dambh, etc. are born due to the desires. Now another element, important element, or a very strong virus is the virus of the attachment, or the moh. So the third stage is the tanumansa. That's where the free of attachment, the detachment starts to take place. As the intellect is growing, intellect is telling us that, giving us the clarity, and the futile things automatically they start to drop off. The vairagya, the state of vairagya has started to happen subsequently, as the intellect is growing, Vairagya has started to develop. Now, Vairagya also has a very lot of misconception in the society. People are afraid of Vairagya. People think that going away from the house, leaving this world, leaving my job, responsibilities, retiring to the jungle, that is the concept of detachment which has kind of fed into our minds. But that is absolutely wrong. That's why many people are afraid of taking up spirituality in the young age, because that is the age they say, this is the age we have to enjoy. We will see in the later stages, older age, when we are done with all the enjoyment, then we will think of Vairagya. Happens with most of us, many of us. Okay. But the concept of attachment and detachment has not been clear, and that is why this is happening. Okay. So what is this Tanumansa? Tanumansa means here the mind has started to gain stability on the transcendental, because mind is going in and out, transcendental, terrestrial. This at this stage, mind is still fluctuating, because you know it is still, there is a doubt is there, external world is there, inner world is also there, there is a fear also which is kind of happening, emerging high very at this point, because these things will start to stop us. These impurities will show their power to stop the growth. So a lot of negative thoughts will also start to come up, which are there in the subconscious, with those thoughts which we have grown up. Okay. So this is in and out is happening at this stage. But mind has started to gain stability on transcendental for a while. It is like when you go to the office, through the traffic, you go, you work in the office for 9 and 10 hours. Again, you come navigate through the heavy traffic and then come back home. So once you are at home in the evening, you feel relaxed. Okay. You drink your tea, coffee, have some talks with the family. At that point, you are aware of the external world, but you don't want to go into the external world. Staying at the home is giving you a lot of goodness and good feelings. There is a traffic outside. There is awareness of the external world is there. Same is happening in this third stage, where the awareness of the external world is there, but mind doesn't want to go out. Mind has just done a hard labor of duty in the external world, and it has returned to home. It just wants to relax there and soak and bask in that glorified feeling that this world is futile. I don't want to go there. It just wants to relax. It is knowing that the enjoyment, real enjoyment, is not outside, it is here. I'm feeling. So you can compare with that kind of feeling to this experience of Tanumansa, how it is happening in the internal stage. Okay. Now, when we are talking about attachment, let us see how these attractions play a life and spoil our life. Okay. So as a subject, we have attraction towards various objects and subject in the external world as we are growing up. Okay. There are likes and dislikes. Few things we like, we develop attraction towards that. Few things we don't like, so we don't care about all those things. Okay? That's how the life goes on. And this whole set of likes and dislikes keep on changing as we grow up. Okay. This gross attraction then starts giving rise to the subtle attachment. Underneath, we start to develop attachment with the objects and subject of the attraction which are there. And then the gross desires convert into the subtle desires of name, fame, power, wealth. Okay. Those kind of desires are the subtle desires in the subtle layers of the mind which are there. Okay. So attraction leads to attachment. Desire leads to attraction. Attraction leads to attachment. And then this attachment starts playing havoc into our life, every part of our life. You see that how it operates in a family. Okay. Attachment between the husband and the wife. So what is attachment? Attachment is the impurity. It is the impure love. We think that we are loving our spouse. But if there is an attachment mixed to that love, that is that selfishness which is there, which comes into play. We are living for something in return. We are loving something for something in return. Okay? Because we are deriving pleasures from our family members. Although we tell them, whatever I am doing for you. But the right thing is, the real thing is, we are doing for ourselves. We are breeding our own desires. And then, so these subtle things that keep working on there. So attachment turns into possessiveness. And possessiveness, what it leads to? It leads to the separation. It feels nauseatic because you try to overpossess your partner or your family member. Parents try to overpower their children under attachment. They think that you should lead your life according to my likes and dislikes. We start imposing our likes and dislikes to our children. Similarly, a husband is doing the same with the wife. Wife wishes to do the same with the husband. Okay, what is happening here? Attachment is actually creating the foundation. Love sets you free. Attachment is actually binding you, binding the freedom of the other person. The other person will start to feel suffocated. These are like two pillars. You keep bringing the two pillars together, near. What will happen? At one point, the building will collapse. Beyond a point, if they come closer, the building will collapse because the center of gravity will shift. Same happens in the relationships with attachment. Okay. Attachment also leads to anger. Attachment also clouds the intellect. Many examples are there. One example I can give you, which happened with me recently when I do that attachment to the objects, right? When I have a car, I'm attached to my car. New car is there. Okay, everybody is attached to their new thing, right? Whichever you bring, you don't want it to be any kind of scratch which should happen. So 2 weeks back, we were driving on the highway. My wife was driving, and I was sitting on the other seat. And then suddenly the brake had to be applied. There was a barrier which came, and the front vehicle applied the brake. She also had to apply the brake. But there was a vehicle which was coming behind. It kind of came and stood very, very close. The vehicle behind the previous vehicle came and dashed it, and that vehicle dashed our vehicle. There was a third. And that attachment, see how I started shouting at my wife. Without knowing the real situation, what happened, I started shouting at her, you did the wrong thing. You didn't see the brake, and you applied it, and see what the other guy has done. There is definitely big dent on the car. Then I went out. I saw there was nothing behind the car. There was only a sound. There was a very minor scratch which was there. And then I learned that it is not that vehicle, that there is vehicle which had hit the previous vehicle, and the previous vehicle has hit our vehicle. So without analyzing the situation, attachment to the object suddenly overpowered the right kind of thinking, and this happened. Okay, another instance which happened where we stay in our neighborhood. Okay, there's a person who is retired at a very, very major rank in the army, right? The maid who works there also works in our house. One day the maid came to our house, and then she told to my wife that today I broke something new in that house. Something got broken by mistake, and this major person, or the mega brigadier, he raised his hand to hit me. He was almost about to hit me and kind of stopped there. So angry. And then she was working there for many years, and then she left the job. She didn't go there the next day. So the attachment to the object took over the sensitivity. Okay, mistakes can happen by family members, can others, but the anger suddenly, right, fit of rage, the emotion it generates clouds the thinking of that. This is how attachment plays a role in our day-to-day life. Okay, it operates in our work life also. Each one of us at our work, we desire for success. We all want to grow. We all want status in our job. We all want good salaries to be there. We want to be promoted. Everybody wants. Okay. There is a kind of race which goes on, especially in the corporate world. This happens. Desire for success is there. And this desire for success creates more desire, insatiation, subtle greed, ego. I am the best. Okay. When you get one promotion, you become happy, and then again you start looking for another promotion. You want more. You want more. Okay. This goes on. Okay. And then what happens? We develop attachment to our position, attachment to our work, and we start taking the things personally, because attachment leads to possessiveness. You possess something. Now this thing belongs to me. Attachment means this belongs to me. The moment the this belongs to me comes, immediately the insecurity will come, the fear will come of losing it will start immediately. Just like the birth happens, the death is also born with the birth. The fear of death is also born with the birth, and they go hand in hand. Okay. Similarly, the moment the attachment and possession comes, this belongs to me, the fear of losing it automatically comes there. And this attachment starts playing. There is a fear of failure. I don't want to fail. What if I fail? Okay. Then the person starts taking load on himself. He doesn't trust on his team members. He starts micromanaging. He starts taking workload on himself, not trusting on other team members. Okay. Self imposition of duties, and the person becomes enslaved of his duties. Okay. Happens to many people. We become enslaved to our duties because we don't want to fail. We have attained a position in the company. I'm attached to that status. What will the people will say if I fail? What if something goes wrong? What if my project doesn't succeed? I will be held responsible. The whole entire image which I have built will finish. All that fear set in, and then we start ragging ourselves. We become donkey, start loading the things on our back. All the monkeys we invite and on our own shoulders. Now, when that happens, of course, the time management goes for a toss. We don't have time. We have more work. We have less time. So the freedom of creative thinking goes away. And then we start copy pasting. Okay, pick up something from here, pick up something, somebody, ask thing, and then start putting things over there. So the creativity, imagination, everything is now has come to the stall. The intellect, intelligence, everything ceased to grow. See how the attachment is working. And then eventually, one day the breakdown will happen. Stress will take over. It will take on the health. Before we realize, it becomes too late. And then we start raise the SOS. Okay. That is how the virus of attachment playing the role in our work. It plays a lot of havoc in the society also, especially in the name of religion. Okay. People are more attached to religion than their family members, you see. They are ready to go to any distance for their religion. My religion should be best. I can do anything to save it. Okay. So that is the whole blind thing which happens. Attachment is playing havoc. I think I love my religion, but it is not a love. It is attached to the religion. Attachment to the person, attachment to the guru, attachment to the organization, attachment to the country. Okay. So attachment breeds violence. Attachment breeds anger. It is not love. So love plus impurity or love plus selfishness is attachment. That's selfishness. Remove that selfish part out of it. The true love in the pure form happens. Okay. So the final three stages, quickly we will go, because now these are something, the next set. The first three stages are called the waking state. We can kind of cognize because we have experiences. But these are beyond our experience, the next 3 or 4 stages, which is waking into new dimension. After the attractions are lost, free of attraction, the mind becomes free of attraction. The person uh, wakes up into the new reality, into a new world opens. The person, this is the doorstep of the God or doorstep of that Brahm which are talking about, that reality. This is the Haridwar, the actual Haridwar, where you can now feel that you are going towards Hari. You are about to get what you wanted. You are on the right, the confidence starts to build up, going towards the, I am taking the right direction. Okay. But in this stage also, the external world is there. Awareness of the external world is still there. It is like the, when you are about to wake up, when we are about to transition from sleep into wake up state, we are going back and forth, right? We are partially in the dream state and partially in the awakened state. That state comes to us, right, where we are seeing that thing, but we are also, the dream is continuing. It's that kind of state you can kind of compare this particular state up to, the state of Satvapathy. It is called as Satvapathy. This stage 4 becomes more intense in the stage 5 into a non-illusionary world of Asam Sakti. This is called Asam Sakti. This is the intensification of the previous stage. It is like you are completely out of the dream and you are now into the awakened state where you remember that you were dreaming. Now you are in the real world. Oh, that was dream what I was seeing. That kind of conviction comes, right, when we wake up. The same thing happens there. This external world is like a dream this is for the yogi. This is a dream I was living. I was thinking it's a real. Now I am out of my dream. Now I can see the reality. Okay, reality. This is a new world, real world, that intensifies into the stage 5. And then in the stage 6, the external world is completely, the cessation happens. The Padarth Bhavani, here the awareness has gone to the causal body, beyond the thoughts and beyond the desire, into the state of bliss, Anandamaya state. Although the reality has still not come, but the person is like, we can correlate this with the state of deep sleep. When we are in the deep sleep, there is no dream. Even we don't have the cognizance of the external world. We are just darkness, nothingness is there. Maybe we get about 5 minutes of that deep sleep in this entire sleep cycle. You will get 5-10 minutes of that state. It is that stage which happens in the yogi. But here, consciousness is there, awareness is there. In our deep sleep, we don't have consciousness working there, but here the consciousness is there working on the causal body. Stage number 6, complete cessation of the external world takes place. And then finally comes the 7th stage of Turiya, where this causal body is also transcended. Body, mind, intellect, everything, thought, everything is transcended. Okay, the seeker and the knowledge becomes one. There is no duality that remains in this stage of complete liberation called Turiyaga. These are the 7 stages or the experience the learner goes through. And this is how it has been described in Yoga Vashishta, and many other seekers have described this stage. And we will briefly touch upon how this Adi Shankaracharya has done this, and then continue from there in our next episode, that is in May. So let's complete this session with a prayer. Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. once again, gratitude and thank you for your cooperation and patience.
Thank you, Anurag Bhaiya. Thank you, all the speakers. So we will meet on next Sunday, same time, 4 p.m. for our group discussion. So anyone would like to share anything, any suggestion, any question, so that you can post it in our WhatsApp group. So we will take it to on next Sunday. So you all have a good day and take care. Bye bye.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.